Imagine you're given this worksheet and you're asked to audit the formulas in it. I mean, you find yourself needing to make sure that every formula is in order, like you need to verify their accuracy, you need to check and fix every single error in them. How will you go about it? That's actually what we call formula auditing, and that is what we are going to be looking at in today's tutorial. Alright, so you're welcome to my channel. My name is Blessing and I will be teaching you how to audit formulas in Excel. First of all, what does it really mean to audit formulas? It means that you want to examine them, you want to trace their source or their sources, and you want to also evaluate what they contain. Alright, every formula in the worksheet, you want to examine them, you want to trace them, you want to evaluate them. And by so doing, you are trying to understand how each of the formulas work. You also want to find out how accurate they are, and you also want to identify every possible error. So I have several formulas here. So if you are trying to audit it, it means you are trying to find out what is the source of these formulas, how accurate they are, do they contain any error, and how do I go about fixing the errors. Now, this is very important, especially if your worksheet contains several complex formulas, several functions that you have put in place. And if these functions are interdependent, they depend on each other, you will need to understand how to audit them step by step. And especially if you are not the one who worked on the worksheet or who produced the worksheet initially, you will need to know how to audit it to make sure that each formula included in it is actually very accurate. Well, it's actually something that is doable and it is not impossible. Excel has provided us with several tools that we can use to audit formulas, and each of them can help you to quickly visualize and troubleshoot the relationships between every formula. We have 5 of them we are going to be looking at today, and we will see how they work. So the first formula, the first tool, I beg your pardon, for auditing the formulas is actually the tool called trace precedent. Now, if you watch over here, you will discover that I have my formulas tab open and I have the tools here: trace precedent, trace dependent, remove arrows, show formulas, and error checking, evaluating formulas. I'll be looking at these 6 today. We'll be looking at 6 of them and how each of them actually works. Okay, so the first one is actually trace precedent. What does this formula do, or this tool do? What does it do? It helps us highlight the cells that supply data to a particular cell. Now, let me say, for example, I have my total revenue. If I want to find out how did I calculate the total revenue, which cells did I use in calculating this total revenue, basically the entries in those cells are what we are used to derive this entry here. So you use the trace precedents to get those particular cells that supply data to this. So all you just have to do is select the cell you want to trace its suppliers, as it were, and click on this. So remember, you go to your formulas, and then in the formula editing group you have trace precedents, and then you click on that, and then these arrows and dots pop up. The 2 dots here tells me that these are the sources and they supply their data to this particular cell. Now, just by clicking that cell, I have that here, but sometimes you just want to see it at a glance. You may not be able to scroll to the left or scroll to the right as you are tracing which one is J2, which one is I2. Just by clicking the active cell or the cell you want to trace its precedent and clicking on this trace precedent, you just get the cells that supply data to it. That's the first tool. The second tool is trace dependence. Now, it's like the opposite of trace precedent. Let me remove this arrow. So if you want to remove the arrow, just click on remove arrows and it is gone. Trace dependents actually say what cells depend on this active cell. So if I click on units sold, that's the first cell here, that is I2, and I click on trace dependents, I am trying to find out what cells actually get their value from units sold, or what cells does units sold supply its values to. So those cells are actually dependent on I2, which is the first cell in a unit sold. So let me click on dependent, and quickly it tells me 2 cells. So units sold, you see the 1 dot supplies its data to the total revenue. While calculating that, we need total units sold. While calculating total revenue, we need units sold. Also, while calculating total cost, we also need units sold. So units sold is supplying its data to these two cells. So at a glance, you can see this. You don't have to start scrolling to the left or evaluating the formula or reading the formula or whatever. Just by clicking trace dependent, you are able to identify which cells depend on units sold. So the first one, trace precedence. The second one, trace dependent. Trace precedence tells us, okay, where are the data used in the cell? Where are they coming from? So we are able to trace the source. Trace dependent tells us who is this cell supplying its data to. That's the fine line between both of them. The next one is actually remove arrows. It's actually not really a tool, but we just use it to remove the arrows. So if I click here, it removes every arrow. But if I just click the drop down arrow beside it, it's going to ask me which of the arrows precisely do you want to remove. Do you want to just remove the precedent arrows or just the dependent arrows? But if you just click on it directly, it removes every single arrow. Okay, so the next tool is the one we called evaluate formula. Down here, evaluate formula. What does it do? It helps us, it takes us through a step-by-step analysis of the formula you have entered. How does the formula arrive at that answer? It's more like a step-by-step calculation. Okay, first step, this is what happens. Second step, this is what happens. And third step, this is what happens. Let's look at an example. For example, I want to trace how did I get my total profit. Let me use that for example. It's actually very simple, okay? It is just L2 minus this. Okay, let's do that. Let's just take that very quickly. It's a simple formula I have here, but it's very important. This evaluate formula is very important when you have complex formulas, but let's use it for this simple example. So I want to evaluate how this cell arrived at this, or let me make it a little complex. Since L2, or rather the formula here says L2 minus M2, so let me say instead of just L2 minus M2, L2 is gotten from I2 times J2, so I'm going to copy that and replace it with L2 here. All right, and then I'm coming, M2 comes from I2 and K2, so I'm going to copy that and also replace M2 with it. Yeah, let's see. Just to make it a little complex, let me separate them with brackets, this and this. Okay, so very quickly, I would like to now evaluate this so that I will see the steps that Excel took in arriving at this answer. So I click my evaluate formula, and then here you have your evaluate. So it's once you click it step by step, it shows you how we arrived at that. So first of all, let's click the first time. We have evaluate. It tells us, hold on. Yeah, it tells us, okay, before that, I want to make sure we start from the beginning and see. So it just writes out the formula. I2 times J2 minus I2 times K2. That's the formula. So when I say evaluate, it tells us that the first thing it did was to pick the value of I2. There you go, 5311, that's the value of I2. And then it finds the value of J2, which is this. That's the second step. Next step, it multiplies both I2 and J2 and drops the answer there, the result there. Next, it jumps to I2. You can see it underlined. It jumps to I2. Then it picks the value for I2 again, which is actually 5311. Next, it also finds the value for K2, which is this 524.96. And then it evaluates that. Then it drops the answer, the result there. Then it begins to watch the underline, what's actually happening with underlining, and then once it evaluates, it gives us the answer. Let's just do that one last time. I would want you to place your eye, keep your eye on the underlined terms. Okay, here, so I2 is underlined, so it's starting off with I2. It then goes to J2, looks for the value for J2, picks that and replaces it, and then it underlines everything here. Basically, this is what I'm now operating. I'm now evaluating. Then we have everything out, and then it jumps to I2 again, get the value, go to K2, get the value. Now everything is underlined. We are trying to evaluate and get the result. Boom, that is it. And then it now underlines everything and tells us. So these are the steps it takes to arrive at this formula. Now, why is this important? If you are not sure how, more like the syntax, the sequence of operation that it followed in arriving at the answer, you can use your evaluate formula to follow it step by step. Or maybe you're just studying a complex formula in Excel and you are not sure how it works. You can use the evaluate formula to see how Excel actually arrived at the answer. You can click here to actually restart. Okay, so that is the fourth tool, evaluate formula. The next tool is actually just to show formulas. Up here, you can see it. You want to see all your formulas, all the formulas in this sheet. You want to see all of them laid out. So all you just have to do is click on, where is that? Show formulas. And once you hit that, it's more like you have a new sheet. And every place a formula was used, you see it all spelled out. Let me go to somewhere neutral. Beautiful. So these are all our formulas from here down, 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 down. You see all of it. So it gives you just an idea of where formulas are used, where formulas are not used, and if possible, how the formulas are even used. That's tool number 5. Now, what's the last tool? That's our error checking. That's tool number 6. It actually helps us. Let's undo this. Just click on this again, and the formulas disappear, and we have our values once again. Error checking. What does error checking do for us? Error checking just tells us where we have an error, so that you can just snap to that position immediately, and then you begin to fix it. Take, for example, let's see if we have an error. So we just click on error checking, and it tells us the error check is complete for the entire sheet, and basically there are no errors. So let me intentionally create an error somewhere. Unit sold here, just at random. Random. Let us delete this, and then let's check again. Let's go to the top, and then we say error check. Quickly it snaps to the first error, and then you can begin to evaluate what the error is all about. So here this box pops open, and it tells you this is a divide by 0 error. Now there are different types of errors. If you have not watched our video on the different types of error, you can just check through our playlist and you will see the video on the types of errors. But this is one type of error, the divide by 0 error. And it says that the formula or function used is dividing by 0 or by an empty cell. So you will just have to trace that back, find out where you have an empty cell, which is actually here because this depends on this depends on this, and this also depends on this. So if we don't have if we have an empty cell here, it means all of them will be 0. And eventually this profit and loss percent, which is actually, we have to divide profit by total revenue and then multiply by 100. It's not going to be possible because now our total revenue is 0 and even the profit is 0. Okay, so it's throwing an error there. All you just have to do, trace it back and fix your error. In the video about types of errors and handling errors, we talked about how you can handle your errors, how you can identify which error is being indicated and what they mean. There are different types, what they mean, and how you can actually work with those errors and fix them. All right, that's all about checking errors. Why is this? Did I say checking errors? Auditing formulas, I beg your pardon. Why is this actually very important? It helps you ensure the accuracy of your results. If you want to check if everything on your worksheet is accurate, let me undo this before I forget. If you want to check, make sure that everything is accurate, you have to learn to audit your formulas. It also helps you to simplify troubleshooting. If you don't know how to audit formulas, you may have to be scrolling one after the other, cell by cell, column by column, trying to trace where you have an error. Okay, so tools like your error checking will help you make troubleshooting very fast. And then tools like trace dependence and trace precedence help you ensure accuracy of your results so that you know who depends on who and what is actually causing what. All right, having said all those, I hope you understood and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You have a question, go down straight to the comment section and I'll be waiting to attend to your question. Okay, share the video, share it with someone who you feel will need what you have learned so far. Thank you so much. I love you all. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.